My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. Hey y'all, so I've kind of been hankering to film a video talking about the effect of my no-buy year on this past year, because I'm approaching the 1-year anniversary of the completion of my no-buy year. And in a lot of ways, this year was actually the really important year because the no-buy was like a closed system. When I was inside the no-buy year, I wasn't going to be buying anything. So my problem was contained kind of de facto. I feel like the real test of the no-buy was how I ended up behaving when I was set free on the world and I could theoretically buy whatever I wanted without breaking my rules. Of course, what I did was to put new rules in place, to put a budget in place, and I will talk a little bit about that. But as we have approached the end of the year, as we've approached the 1-year anniversary of the completion of my no-buy year, I've been thinking a lot about the ways in which the effects of my no-buy year have played out. And I feel like it deserves its own video because when I film my check-in at the end of this month, I'm going to be checking in about December, maybe checking in about my budget, but I'm always really focused in that video on talking about how my budget is affecting my life now. So it's like more current. And this is going to be just more about like backing up and looking at the way my life has actually been different now over the course of this whole year as a result of my no-buy year. I did film a video a couple of months ago called How My No-Buy Year Changed My Life, and if you're interested in what I'm promising to talk about in this video and you haven't seen that video, then I highly recommend that one as well, because in that one I was able to dig deep into a couple of key ways in which my no-buy year changed my life, like really dig deep into it. And in this video it's going to be more of like a what are we thinking now on the 1-year anniversary of the completion of the no-buy year? Like what are looking back and looking ahead, like it's more of like an anniversary marker type thing. That video contained a bunch of the like heavy hitting stuff, like a bunch of the deep digging. Not like I'm not gonna dig deep in this video. I try to do it whenever possible. But I'll definitely link that one down below. This one's more, it's more of like a check-in on how I did at riding my own bike this year. And that's a phrase that I'm stealing from the Whole30 people. So the Whole30 is a clean eating program. It's like a 30-day clean eating program that you can choose to go through. You eliminate anything potentially inflammatory from your diet, and then at the end of the 30 days, you reincorporate it slowly and try to find out if any of it is causing inflammation in your body. I've been through the program a couple of times, and I was really inspired by the way that they talk about abstaining from things that have historically been addictive or things that can kind of get in amongst you when I built my no-buy project. And I've referenced it a couple of times. I haven't talked about it too much. I loved my experience with the Whole30, and I am really inspired by the way that that program is structured. So they talk about after the 30 days is over, like after you have been really strict and done this elimination diet, they talk about the rest of your life riding your own bike. So you're not going to stay on the Whole30 for your whole life in the same way that I wasn't going to be on as strict of a no-buy for my whole life. It wasn't going to be my no-buy life. It was a no-buy year that was designed to rehabilitate me so that I could then live a more balanced, a more joyful life, a life that was unfettered by the problems that I had going into my no-buy year. So the people who designed the Whole30 talk about what happens after your project as riding your own bike. And they talk about it as kind of a trial and error process. Like you have to figure out where your limits are, what kind of restriction you need to leave in place, and what kind of restriction you can let go of. You have to kind of figure out what works best for you. You're riding your own bike now. You're not riding the bike of the program anymore. And that's kind of how I felt this year. Like I did my no-buy, and this year I've been like riding my own bike. And my bike was mainly the budget. Like I used the budget, or like I got onto a different bike that was like sort of a different program, the budget. But there are a lot of ways, especially in terms of my emotional relationship with shopping, my mental relationship, and my relationship with stuff, which has been extremely weirdly morphed because of being on YouTube and getting PR. So my relationship with all of that stuff has been like tested this year in a way that makes me feel like I'm really riding my own bike. And I wanted to reflect about that in this video. I'm also going to go back over the 3 goals that I set for myself at the beginning of my no-buy year. I feel like I had those goals at the beginning of the no-buy, and at the end of the no-buy, they had very clearly been addressed. But I want to check back in on those goals at the end of the year during which I haven't been on a no-buy and see how I'm doing at those goals now. So that's what the meat of this video is going to be. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So at the beginning of my no-buy year, I filmed a video. I was like, I'm Hannah. This is my no buy year. Here's the way that my project is structured. These are my rules. And in that video, my first ever video on YouTube, I gave 3 goals, 3 reasons why I was embarking on a no buy year. And the reasons were 1, to change my habits, 2, to regain control over my finances, and 3, to get to know myself better and to teach myself to cherish my collection of beautiful things. So 3, it's kind of 2 parts, but to me, getting to know myself better, getting to know my stuff better, kind of like rehabilitating my relationship with my stuff and my stuff as an extension of myself. It was weirdly accurate, I feel like weirdly visionary of me to say that one of my goals was to kind of heal my relationship with myself. What I said in that video was to get to know myself better. And it's weird to think that there was a time in my life when I was like, I don't know myself well enough. I need to do this project so I can get to know myself better. But I think it signifies that I knew more than I was letting on to myself about what was at the root of my problem with shopping. So it was kind of funny for me to go back and look at that statement, the statement of these 3 things that I was trying to change, and to see that was part of it, because that ended up being the most impactful bit of fallout of my no buy year. But let's talk about the first 2 first. So goal number 1, to change my habits. And yes, my habits have changed spectacularly, and that has stuck through the beauty budget year. During the no buy year, obviously my habits were changed by force. Like, they were changed by force, the force of the project, the structure of the project. My habit of buying beauty products to soothe my troubled soul, I just ceased it based on my rules. Of course my habits changed during my no buy year. During my beauty budget year, I am not any longer not shopping for beautiful things. I am actively shopping for beautiful things. I have a budget for it. So in terms of overspending on beautiful things, yes, my old habit is still being fended off by my budget. So yeah, my habit of overspending has changed, but I feel like that's less interesting, less important, because of course it's changed. I made my rules, I stick to my rules, and my rules changed my old habit of overspending, because when you have a budget and you're sticking to it, you can't do that. So that's like the easy one for me. I feel like the more interesting stuff has to do with my habits of mind, the way I spend my time, because if you're spending, say you're going to spend $200 a month on beautiful things, you could spend an hour shopping for those beautiful things and spending that money in that month, and you could also spend like most of the month. You could spend all your time. You could spend all of your spare time. Every moment, every time you suddenly worry about anything, you could start shopping and thinking about what you're going to buy, putting things in your cart, taking them out of my cart. That's what I used to do. That's how I used to spend my time. That's how I used to distract myself from my woes. That's how I used to distract myself from the fact that I had a high level of anxiety about the woman that I was turning out to be, and how different that woman was from the fantasy woman that I always hoped or believed I would turn out to be, or at least I thought that that was true. I was like in crisis all the time, existential crisis about myself, my future, my womanhood, my career, my role, my success. And the way that I ameliorated that was to shop. So that was my habit. My budget isn't keeping me from doing that. My budget isn't keeping me from browsing, wanting, researching, all of the acts of shopping, including buying. It's not keeping me from using that as a band-aid. What it is doing is it's keeping me from using that as a band-aid so much that I spend over $200 a month. So it's just keeping a cap on how much I spend, but it's not putting a cap, it's not having any bearing on the way in which I interact with shopping. However, those habits have changed dramatically. I no longer interact with shopping in this insane, obsessive way that makes me feel yucky. In fact, especially towards the end of this year, I've had some really lovely experiences shopping. Like, I've gone shopping and I've like felt good the whole time, and in like a clear way, in a clean way, not in like this addictive way, this like drug-like way, but in a way I had never experienced before. Kind of like with the Whole30, and I'll try not to put too many food analogies in this video because I know it doesn't work for everyone, but kind of like how when I went through the Whole30, it did change my relationship with food, and I can eat really yummy things, but in a way that it just feels different. Like the experience of eating them feels different. I feel like full in a way that's different, whereas before I would feel like stuffed. I don't know if that helps anyone out there. I just feel like there's shopping and then there's shopping, and there was this kind of like nasty way of engaging in shopping that used to be my vice, and that's changed. I now have a new way of engaging in shopping. And again, like I could be engaging in the nasty old way and still staying within my budget. So that's an exciting change for me because the budget isn't dictating that. That's happening, that has happened and has continued to happen because of the no buy year. So I consider that to be like a fundamental change, like a change in me. It's not something that I'm imposing on myself. So that's good, but I feel like it's worth mentioning that there are some ways of engaging in the act of shopping and in sort of like researching and getting excited about things that haven't changed as much as I would like them to. And I feel like it goes in waves. So the person I was just talking about, the Hannah who has this calm, rehabilitated relationship with shopping, who has a really nice experience every time, that's most of the time. And most of the time, I'm not spending my spare time shopping. I don't usually go to the Sephora website and read reviews when I'm feeling crappy. Like I just don't. I used to do it all the time, every day, every night. That's what I would do. And I almost never do that anymore. And again, it's not because I don't have money to spend. It's not because I don't have budget to spend. It's because I just don't do that anymore. It's because my habits have changed. That's most of the time. But when I have a bad time, I do default to it. It's not like I've changed into a new person, and those old habits are kind of still lurking there. So the bad months I've had this year, the really bad weeks I've had, sometimes bad nights I've had, I have found myself behaving in the old way. So I'm back on the website, I'm scrolling, I'm reading reviews, I'm trying to find something to want, kind of like obsessive, panicky feelings when trying to decide what to buy, what to spend my budget on, realizing that I can't have both this and that. I've had times when I've wanted to buy something so badly I felt like I was going to explode, but I couldn't buy it because it was outside my budget. And so there were times when my budget was the only thing keeping me from overspending, but it wasn't keeping me from engaging in those bad habits of mind and habits of thought. So they're mostly gone. I feel like my standard, my default is to be a person that I never knew before, this person who has a really healthy relationship with beautiful things and with shopping. But it's not all the time. And I just want to make sure you guys know that because it just takes longer. It takes longer than 2 years. And it takes longer than like one no buy and one beauty budget. And then it's like, you're cured, you're the best. You know, in my experience, at least for me, it's taking longer than that. And I do feel like slowly those times when I revert back into my old way of thinking are receding. Like it happens less and less often. My awareness level is so much higher than it used to be. And so I can catch myself in the act when it's happening. I can often see that I'm doing it. And I also know why I'm doing it. I'm like, I know that you're doing this because you feel bad. And this is why you feel bad. And then I can kind of like shift my focus away from whatever the highlighter that I'm looking at on Sephora and onto why I feel bad. And that doesn't always feel great. It's so much better to be an escapist. It feels so much better. But it does keep me from breaking my budget, buying a thing I'm going to regret buying most of the time. It helps me to move forward. Like it helps that act of like catching myself doing that old thing. It helps that to be like a stepping stone towards becoming more healed rather than it just being like steps back. So my habits have changed tremendously. I'm very, very happy with my current state of being with regards to budgeting and shopping. Like it feels amazing. It feels so amazing to be able to shop and buy something and be really happy with it and not have a bunch of nasty stuff attached to that. But I also know that the journey's not over. All right, goal number 2 at the beginning of my no buy year was to regain control over my finances. And this has almost completely happened. Like this to me is, I don't know, it's almost so complete and so shocking that it's like, it seems obvious or it seems like dumb to talk about it. It seems second nature. But when I think back to what my life was like before my no buy year, how frequently I was in credit card debt, when I think back to the windfall money, like I won prize money with my writing in my graduate school program and spent it all on beautiful things. And I had a stipend when I was in school. I was on scholarship, on fellowship, and so I had this fellowship stipend that I could have saved a large portion of, and I spent it all on beautiful things. Like I think about all the money I spent and then the credit card debt I went into on top of that. And then I think about what it's like now, which is that almost everything I earn either is spent on necessities or it goes into savings. Almost everything I earn. I have my $200 a month budget, and sometimes that feels like a lot when I look at what's in my bank account. Sometimes it feels like a lot that I'm spending. But then when I really look at what I'm doing, I look at how I'm behaving with my finances, And one of the main things I'm doing, this is like a habit change, but is that I look at it all the time. I look at my bank balance almost every day. I know what's going on with my finances. I know what I have in savings. I know what I have in checking. I know what's coming in. I know what's going out. It's never been like that before. It's madness to me to think of how much of a change I've gone through with regards to my control over my finances. That was my goal. I feel like it's been a smash hit success. And it's not like I'm getting rich over here or something. It's not like I'm, opening stock portfolios left and right or something like that. It's just that I feel like I have a little bit of a cushion. I have room to like buy my friends and family the Christmas gifts I want to buy for them without feeling like I'm down to my last dollar all the time. For me to really be secure, like financially secure in this world, things will have to change. Like I need to do more. Like Joe and I we're living hand to mouth in a big city. We're like running our own business. We're working on creative careers. So I'm not like a super financially secure person if you look at like all the options, especially maybe other options I could be pursuing if I wasn't so dead set on, spending most of my life writing, which is what I'm doing. But my goal wasn't to get rich or to become like really financially secure or to be able to buy a house by 2020 or something like that. Like that wasn't my goal. My goal was to just regain control, to stop feeling like there was literally a hole punch in the bottom of the bucket of my bank account and the money was just like leaking out. And every time I looked into it, I was like, where did it all go? Because that's what my habit was. It was that. And that hole has been completely plugged. And so it hasn't made me like someone who never has to think about money or worry about money, not even close. But it's given me like a normal relationship with my funds for the jobs that I do and the amount of income that I earn and the life that I have. And that is a tremendous relief. All right, the big one, number 3. My goal at the beginning of my Know by Year was to get to know myself better and to teach myself to cherish my collection of beautiful things. And yeah, boy, did it ever, but it didn't really start happening until the end of the year. And I talked about, this is what I really dug deep into in my other video. So actually, mainly for this one, I just refer you to my other video, the one that's called How My Know by Year Changed My Life, because I really dig into the topic of how my Know by Year changed my relationship with myself and how much better I got to know myself and how thorough has been the transformation of my relationship with my beautiful things. My beautiful things now, to me, it includes like Joe and Sadie. I don't want to like talk about it too much because I'll like start crying all over the place, but it's not just, and if you've seen that video, you kind of know what I'm about to say. It's not just my stuff. It's not just my makeup. I do have an enhanced relationship with my stuff, my beautiful stuff, my makeup, my clothes. I do have a new way of loving them compared to how it was before my Know by Year, which was like either obsessive or everything wasn't good enough. I was either obsessed with it or I was bored of it. And usually I was only obsessed with it if it was brand new or not yet purchased. And if I'd owned it for a while, if I'd already incorporated it into my life, then I was bored with it. That has changed a lot. My favorite things are pretty much things I've had for a long time. It's been like that for most of the year. PR has presented a challenge to that, and I'm going to talk about that later in the video. But for the most part, my relationship with like my stuff, not like all the new stuff coming in, but my stuff, the stuff that's always been my stuff, yeah, it's changed a lot. But more importantly, I now think of Joe and Sadie and our space together, and also me, myself, my body, my personality, what I contribute, my work. Like that's what I see when in my mind's eye when I envision like my beautiful things, like when I envision my stuff, my collection of beautiful things, like teach myself to cherish my collection of beautiful things. That's what I said at the beginning of my Know by Year that I wanted. I was talking about my makeup and my clothes. So it does make me kind of emotional to read this statement that I made 2 years ago, that my goal, that what I really wanted was to get to know myself better and to teach myself to cherish my collection of beautiful things, because I had no idea. I think I had a little bit of an idea. The fact that I said to get to know myself better indicates that maybe I had a little bit of an idea. But I really could not have guessed that my Know by Year would bring me here, would turn me into a person who has an increased ability to cherish her life. So that it happened. That's another one that was a smash hit success. But as you'll know if you watched that video, it took way longer than the year, because at the end of the no buy year, I was still a total mess. Because in order for me to learn to love what I had, first I got really, really upset. First, I had to let go of the fantasy of my life. I felt like everything was awful. I blamed Joe. I blamed myself. I hated everything. There was a long stretch of time during my no buy year when I felt like my life was garbage. It was like it got way, way worse before it got better. So it was really this year. It was really in the wake of my no buy year that I actually learned to cherish my collection of beautiful things, and I actually learned to redefine my collection of beautiful things and to really understand what matters to me. So moderate to high success in all of those realms. That's really exciting, because I feel like I could have envisioned an alternate universe in which at the very end of my no buy year, I would be like, yeah, I did it. I did all of these things. And then over the course of the next year, all of them would be undone. I could have seen that happening. So I feel like it's actually even more of a triumph to be able to report back at the end of the year after my no buy year and say, yes, those goals have all been met and stayed met. And in many cases, the way in which they've been met has evolved. It's like I've met them even further. I've really met them more during this year, rather than having the end of my no buy year be an occasion to just like slide back into my old way. So I have my new habits. I have my new relationship with my finances, and I have my new ethos, which is like a way of living more confidently and with more contentment in my daily life. Weirdly, and I wanted to talk about this because it's the end of the year and I'm about to transition into a slightly different project, a new project for 2020, which I'll be announcing on January 1st. But in this video, I wanted to address that weirdly, the thing that has been the biggest challenge to my new ethos has been PR. And maybe by extension, you could say has been being on YouTube. And it's weird and it's ironic because my no buy project wasn't necessarily about YouTube. I did my no buy project for myself. It was designed for me. It was executed by me. It was something I would have done if I'd been on YouTube or not. But then I chose to go onto YouTube with it. And that changed my life too. The no buy year changed my life, and starting a YouTube channel also changed my life. And curiously, in this second year of my YouTube channel, certain aspects of the fact of being on YouTube have been the biggest challenge to my new ethos, which is what I earned with my no buy year project. So PR has become a challenge, but it's not necessarily for the reasons you might think, because I was never addicted to products or stuff itself. I've always been a little bit of like a minimalist, not an actual minimalist, but like a streamliner. Like I've always been someone who was uncomfortable with way too much stuff or an excess of stuff or repeats of stuff. So it wasn't like I had an addiction to abundance. I was addicted to the cycle of shopping. So searching for new stuff, finding it, wanting it, researching it, agonizing over it, trying to decide about it, going back and forth, comparing it to other things, having 10 tabs open on my browser, thinking about it all the time, which one I wanted, obsessing about it all, finally deciding to buy one or to buy two, and then buying it with my money. Like the act of buying it. That cycle, all of those actions together, that cycle was my vice. And PR doesn't replicate any of those actions. It doesn't replicate that cycle at all, because PR involves a thing that would happen after that cycle, which is like the getting of the thing and the using of the thing. Sometimes PR does mimic one or two of the stages of that shopping cycle. So the Octoly free store, for example, when you browse through it, it feels like browsing through a shop. And then when you click to request to receive a thing, it kind of imitates the feeling of buying a thing. It's not exactly the same. Like, it's just not exactly the same, because it's not like you can comparison shop. It's not like you can research. There's just this like finite number of things that are available, but it does offer sort of like a wispy ghost of the feeling of shopping. So there are some ways in which PR can sometimes provide a little piece of that cycle. And yeah, that makes it feel more like I'm engaging in my old addictive behavior. But for the most part, and I've said this before, PR doesn't replace shopping for me in any meaningful way, which means that even when free stuff is arriving at my door, I still have to struggle against my old instinct to engage in that cycle. And I still have to try really hard and do a lot of hard work on myself in order to stay within my budget, no matter how much PR I receive. So PR doesn't necessarily challenge me in that it like makes me feel like I'm shopping again, or it like counteracts that part of the no buy year. But what it does do is it makes it harder, just logistically harder, to dwell in contentment with the things I already have. And it really, really makes it harder to maintain a collection, just logistically harder to maintain a collection of fewer, nicer things. So I guess you could say that PR doesn't necessarily challenge my habits. It doesn't necessarily endanger my new habits. It definitely doesn't endanger my financial health, because if anything, it helps me out in that I don't have to buy certain staple items. But what it does do is it challenges the ethos, the third thing, the third goal, the thing of me wanting to like really be content with what I have, to really see what I have and cherish what I have, the kind of spiritual awakening part of it. It's made it harder, especially as the year has gone on and I've received more and more offers of PR. It has just made it harder to stick to the person that I turned myself into spiritually, not habitually, again, not financially, but spiritually. So I'm not going to stop receiving PR. I bet a bunch of you are out there thinking that it's going to be like, my name is Hannah and this is my no PR year. That isn't quite what I'm going to be doing next year. I like being a micro influencer, and I like being able to engage with this system in that way, in the way that some PR allows, which is like to be able to try certain new things and to review things. I just really like reviewing things. I like that this is one of my jobs now. I love it. And so I'm not going to just reject PR out of hand and deprive myself of that in order to obsessively protect the person that I would have become if I had done my no buy year and not done YouTube. I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is try to slowly and with gentleness and love for myself work it out. I'm going to try to work it out. I'm going to try to find balance. Also, I don't know how to say that. I can figure out how to say it. I'm not sure I've ever articulated this on my channel, but as a former voracious YouTube watcher and insane beauty overspender, I'm basically morbidly fascinated with the back end of influencer marketing. And I am experiencing it now. And I really want to keep pushing into it and just like keep learning. I want to keep finding out more. I feel like that's my main interest, to be totally honest. Like as a writer, as just a thinker, and as a beauty lover, and as someone who was on the other side of it and kind of like a victim of this system, that's my main interest. And my discomfort with the volume of stuff that I'm acquiring, to me, that's like a side effect. It's like a side effect of the project that I'm currently engaged in, which is like digging deeper and deeper into the other side. So figuring out how to deal with that volume of stuff is one of my main challenges. It's going to be one of the main challenges of my 2020 project. And that's what it is. It's a challenge. It's not necessarily something to freak out about. It's just my next challenge. So all in all, when it comes to having a healthy relationship with shopping, which is really what I wanted out of my no buy year, it's like what all of those three goals imply. It implies those three goals. They're all kind of tied in together. When it comes to that, I feel like this year has really shown what the no buy year did for me. And my actual evolution this year, my work shopping, like my work on the act of shopping, not refraining from it so that my brain could rewire itself, but the way in which I engaged in the act, it's been more important. It's been my actual life lesson. Like it's been my map for the rest of my life. It's what's helping me plan for the rest of my life, rather than just being like the fix in isolation. To be able to acquire the occasional beautiful thing, especially to be able to focus on acquiring fewer, nicer things, but to have that experience be totally untainted by the obsessiveness of the shopping cycle that I was talking about, the thing that used to be my vice, to be able to kind of complete the event of acquiring fewer, nicer, beautiful things, but without engaging in that thing. I didn't know that that was possible. I love having a more joyful relationship with buying beautiful things, what feels like a more healed relationship. But as I indicated earlier, the best thing about this year has just been an increased ability to nurture a sense of peace, not just with shopping, not just with my stuff, but with my life, the life I'm living, my lot in life, and ultimately with me, myself, the person that I am. Before, my ability to be glad about my life was totally hamstrung because I was constantly comparing what I was going through and what I had with my fantasy of my life, my fantasy of my future, and it would never compare. But now that a fantasy is destroyed, I look around, I look at Joe, I look at Sadie, I look at myself, I look at what I'm doing, and I'm able to experience a sense of gratitude that genuinely was not within my grasp before. It's like I've become a person who can love better. Like my ability to love is being healed. I wouldn't say it's completely healed, but is being healed. I feel like the voices of Western culture talk casually about gratitude as if it's just like in everybody's back pocket and we just forget about it, and all you have to do is just like reach into your back pocket and grab it out and like remember to use it. It's like, just remember to be grateful, just like be grateful. And like we forget to be grateful, but you just gotta like pull it out. But it's not that easy. You can't force a feeling. It's not like it's just there and you've forgotten about it. I think that for some of us, and this was definitely true for me, and from what I can tell, I think that many of you have shared with me that is true of a lot of us, numbness to the specialness of our own lives, it's like a deeply entrenched habit of mind. It's old, and it takes way more than just an epiphany to overwrite that numbness. It's a habit of spirit, and it takes work on the spirit, which takes a long time to change it. And I think that for many of us, that habit of spirit was seeded like in childhood or in early adulthood. And then for our whole lives, constant comparisons between the life that we're leading and the images of lives, the fake images of lives that we see on social media and we see in advertising. It just continues to dig us deeper and deeper into that trench of numbness to the specialness of our actual lives. For years, it was like I knew all I wanted. I remember thinking this like years ago, a couple of years ago, even like when we lived in Michigan. I remember being in Michigan in graduate school and thinking that all I wanted was to have the ability to look at my life, at Joe, at what I had, at the program I was in, at the work I was doing, to look at it because I knew in my mind that it was awesome, that it was special, that what I had, I knew that I was lucky. And what I craved was to look at it and to feel that gratitude and that sort of unchained love for what I had. I wanted to feel that. I would have given anything to feel it, but I couldn't because my fantasy of like a perfection of my life was so entrenched and was always there. It wasn't that I didn't love my life, and it wasn't that I didn't love Joe or that I didn't love myself or have the ability to love myself. It's that all of that love was tempered, was like handcuffed because of its comparison to my fantasy, because nothing can live up to a fantasy. And I think that what I really wanted to communicate with this video, and why I really wanted to make this video, even though I've already made a video about how my No by Year changed my life, is that the removal of that fantasy was not a surgery. It was not like an in and out outpatient procedure, right? It was an erosion. It's still going on, actually, I feel. The significant chunk of the erosion of that fantasy happened towards the end of my No by Year and into the beginning of this year. And then the fallout of that fantasy having been eroded has taken a long time to settle. It was really long. It took a lot of patience. It took me having like a desperate commitment to completely stopping, searching for beautiful things beyond the beautiful things I already had. And it took me being in it for the long haul, a year and beyond. Obviously, I still have my ups and downs. You guys have seen that. And there's a lot that you haven't seen because you just can't put everything on the internet, right? So there's been a lot of garbage. It's been hard, and I haven't always behaved the best this year. Like, I haven't always been the best version of myself. I think nobody can all the time. So of course that's true. But I'm really happy to be able to report that this year has brought with it an increased ability to feel a sense of peace about my life. It's like, that's all I've ever wanted. And I'm still shocked. Like, maybe also why I'm making another video about it. It's like, I can't believe it. I'm like, you guys, I can't believe it. It's all I ever wanted, and it's something I thought that I would never have. So I'm very happy to be able to report that. Even though the YouTube journey, like the YouTube part of my journey, grows ever weirder, and I haven't quite figured out where I'm going to stick in terms of my decisions about PR and my relationship with it and finding balance and all of that, even though I'm still like right in the middle of figuring all that stuff out, I feel capable of cultivating the seeds of contentment that were sown in me by my No by Year. And that is that is just the best. So that is it. I will go ahead and leave my other videos about my no buy year linked down below, especially that other one where I like dig deeper into some of the topics that I mentioned briefly in this video. I hope that this was fruitful and enjoyable to watch. I especially hope that it was maybe motivating for some of you who have been considering a no buy year and you're kind of like, why? Not sure why. Maybe you've been focusing on the superficial reasons and the potential superficial fallout, and you haven't really considered like the spiritual fallout of it, but that is very, very real. I also want to let you know, once again, if you're going into a no buy year, that it might get worse before it gets better. It might get garbagey before it gets amazing, but if you stick to your guns and you watch yourself, listen to yourself, ask yourself questions, and answer those questions, it will get amazing. I think that if you really do it, there's no way that it won't bring you rewards on the level that it brought me. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so, so much. And I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself right now so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.